Okay, so welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a recap of Channel Zero's Red Door, Season 4, Episode 4, Bizarre Love Triangle. Okay, so not a lot happened in this episode, but some key things did happen. So, okay, the episode opens with Jillian as a little girl. She's back in the room in that house when she first encountered Pretzel Jack. And so you see her on the floor. She has a ton of drawings of Pretzel Jack. And then her mom walks in and tells her, okay, it's time for you to go to bed. So at some point during the night, you can see that she's having some kind of emotional something, and the door appears. So she, wakes up and she sees the door and opens it, and that's when Pretzel Jack appears. Initially, she was terrified, kind of scared, obviously. But, that subsided, and they became like BFFs. Okay, so we flash back to current day where, if you remember, the last episode ended with her in the room in the basement of the house, and she was hugging him. They were actually hugging, her and Pretzel Jack. And Tom had gone upstairs, and Sarah, whatever reason, came to the house. Okay, so Ian is still downstairs with Jillian, and he's still trying to get her to learn to control her emotions so that she'll have more control over Pretzel Jack. Okay, so Pretzel Jack is now she's at ease, so now Pretzel Jack is at ease, and he goes and he lays down in the corner. Okay, so now they figure, okay, he's asleep, he's good, she's good. They go upstairs, and Ian's still trying to talk to her and explain to her how, she has to get control of her emotions, and, the more control she has over her emotions, the more control she's going to have over whatever she manifests, basically. And then it happens. She looks over, because at this point, you haven't seen Tom. So she looks over out the window, and who does she see in the yard talking to Tom? Sarah. Because remember, they were in the basement the whole time, so she didn't know that Sarah came to the house. So she's looking, and then all the work that Ian was doing to help her stay calm went right on out the window. And next they see the lights flickering, and of course then Ian is like, oh my god, he's awake. So they go to get the door, hold the door, the basement door closed, because Pretzel Jack's trying to get out to get to Tom, or both Sarah and him, because that's where her anger is. And so they thought that they had locked the door, thought that he was good. Next thing they hear a glass break, and he's got out somehow. So you hear Tom and Sarah, they're going back and forth in the yard about him keep calling her, and da. And then Pretzel Jack comes out of nowhere and stabs the shit out of Sarah in her leg. So they take off, and Jillian and Ian take off behind them. So at this point, the bulk of this is them, Ian talking to Jillian. They're in the woods. They ran in the woods. We're behind Sarah and Tom and Pretzel Jack. And so that's what they're just trying to find her. So around this time, the police shows up, the same cops, and they see the broken glass, and now you kind of walking around to the back of the house to see what's what. At this point, they're all gone, right? So they make it to some kind of school or some kind of pool. So they go into the building, and of course Tom and Sarah get there first, and so she's telling him that he's not your child, and she apologized for making him think she wanted more than that. She was having issues in her marriage at the time, and she realized that she does want to save her marriage, and they have other children, and she's now pregnant, and she's telling him that she did some kind of DNA test, and that the boy's not hers. Now, not his. Now, how she did the DNA test without the husband finding out about it, because we still, so as far as that goes, I'm kind of like, maybe I missed something in that conversation, but I'm like, how the hell did you do a DNA test without your husband finding out about it? But she's telling him that she did the DNA test and that the boy is not his. Now, I don't know what her husband, because we haven't seen her husband, and we don't really know Sarah's background. But I do know that Tom is dark skinned, did it, and that child looks biracial. So obviously, it hasn't raised any eyebrows in her marriage. So I'm assuming her husband is a person of color as well. So we don't know that. But so next Pretzel Jack comes in, and they're trying to hide. They hit something. All this noise going on. Next, he sees them. They're running there. Now they're trying to run down. They're running for their life. Okay, so around this time, Bill goes over to Jillian's house, because he's been really trying to get in contact with her. Of course, they're not there because they're running behind Pretzel Jack and Tom and them. So he's trying to get in contact with Jillian. Okay, so it gets to the point where Sarah, she can't, because he stabbed the shit out of her, so she can't really move as fast. So he gets Tom gets her into what he thinks is a safe area, and then he kind of lured Pretzel Jack away. He's running. Pretzel Jack is hot on his ass, and the next you know, Pretzel Jack corners Tom in the pool area. They end up in the pool, and now he's basically trying to drown the shit out of Tom. So now Tom is fighting for his life. Around this time, Ian and Jillian shows up, and they're looking around, trying to figure out where he is. And I guess she can sense him, so she kind of looked around, and then she could see that he had Tom in the water, about to kill his ass. And so now Ian is talking her through on how, at this point, she's going to have to kill Pretzel Jack. And he's talking her through on how to do it, and he's kind of he's able to kind of tap into whatever energy she has, so their combined energy, so they can get rid of Pretzel Jack. Now, how Tom survived underwater all this time while they talking this shit through is a mystery to me, because it seemed like he was underwater for an eternity with Pretzel Jack. But in the end, they end up working together, and next thing you know, you see Pretzel Jack explode. He's all in pieces. Of course, you don't see any blood or anything in the water. You just see pieces of Pretzel Jack floating on top of the water. Okay, and Tom gets out. And so, at this point, Ian and Jillian collapse because they've exerted a lot of energy to pull this little thing off. And so she gets up, and you can see blood running from her ears. And he was telling her how he had to help her because she didn't have the strength to do it on her own. And then you see Sarah runs into the pool area, because at this point Jillian and Ian are kind of on another level, so they're not actually on the same level as Tom. So Sarah runs in, and she sees Tom, and she goes over to make sure he's okay. And so now they're at the hospital, because of course Sarah needed stitches. Her leg was fucked up. And so they started talking, and then she asked if she could talk to Jillian by herself, and she did. And she basically explained to Jillian what was going on and how the boy is not Tom's. And they had their whole little conversation. And so, while they're having this conversation, Ian and Tom is in the hallway. And so Ian is looking all creepy as fuck. And so Tom eventually walks off, because that's a lot for anybody to handle. And then, Jillian eventually walks out, and she's, just trying to catch her breath about everything that had happened that day. And she was just asked about Tom, and he's like, I don't know. He just asked Ian about Tom, and he's like, I don't know where she went. And he just, went somewhere. So she asked Ian to give her a ride, so she's ready to go home and just have a moment of peace for the time being. She looks, because she's exhausted. So they're leaving. Tom eventually comes back with some coffee for Sarah, and he gives her the coffee. And he's like, well, where's Jillian? She was like, oh, I don't know. She was out in the hall. So why he would only come into the room with 2 cups of coffee when there were actually 4 people in their little group when he left, that was interesting. Anywho, Sarah and Tom talked briefly, and she was basically like, he's not yours, and my husband is on his way here. And then Tom was basically like, okay, whatever. So he ends up, as he was walking out of the hospital, those 2 cops are there, and so they start asking him questions about what happened at the pool. And he's like, I don't even know. And then so they start asking questions about Jillian, and like, why do you think your wife is trying to kill you? Do you think your wife is trying to kill you? What is going on here? And so they start having that little conversation. So Jillian ends up Ian ends up taking Jillian to his family home, and so she could just have some time away. And so they go in, and they talk for a little bit, but of course she feels exhausted. He was like, she feels like a part of herself is gone, and he was like, well, yeah, it does, and in the sense it is, and you're tired, you have a lot of energy. So he just helped her, got her together on the couch so she can just get some rest. So while she's asleep, her phone is going off, ping, 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 she's getting on. So he looks at her phone. It's Bill, her father, trying to get in contact with her. And so what you see is she had stayed the night over at Ian's place. And so Tom walks in, and his phone is ringing, and he picks up the phone, and it was Bill leaving a message saying that he really needs to talk to Jillian. It's about her family. She's not trying to cause any problems. His voice, in his voice, he sounded panicked, and it sounded urgent. Like, I need to talk to her. Please just let her know that I need to talk to her. Da 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 da. And so he told him where. Tom said, I'm staying at such and such hotel, motel, whatever. And so we see Ian, what we see is Bill at the hotel, and there's a knock at the door. At this point, it's night. There's a knock at the door, and he goes to open the door, expecting to see, I guess, Jillian, and it's Ian. And Ian was like, "Oh, I guess I'm not the child that you expected to see." So now we find out that Jillian and Ian are actually brother and sister. Okay, and so they started, of course, they started going back and forth. Bill called Ian a bad seed, and Ian was like, when I came to live with you, I looked up to you. Da, 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 da. So we had the impression that Ian was weird and fucked up for a minute. So going back and forth. Ian starts having some emotional thing. He manifests some creature monster that ends up fucking Bill up. So now Bill is dead. Okay. So Tom pulls up to the hotel. So the whole time he's trying to call Jillian, but of course she's knocked out, and I think Ian had her phone. So he's trying to contact her while he's on his way to the motel. So he gets there, and for whatever reason, he didn't get out of his car right away. He just kind of sat there with the lights out, and then he see Ian leaving the motel room. So now he's like, what is he doing here? So after Ian left, he goes over to the hotel, goes into the room. I didn't see anything. So Ian gets back to the house. Next thing you know, we see Ian. Ian is a fucking, I don't know what the fuck he is. He's just a goon. I don't know. He's sitting in the parking lot of someplace with a bunch of fucking hamburgers and shit, and he's eating like a fucking animal. He's shoving that shit in his mouth. He's growling. Like, there's something wrong with Ian, okay? We've already established that, okay? So, next thing you know, it's morning time. Jillian wakes up, and he makes her some coffee or something. He sits on the couch, and they start talking, and then he kissed her in her mouth. Now, at this point, she doesn't know that they're related, but this motherfucker has known the whole time that they were related. And now he's like trying to get with her, and so he starts asking her like how she liked the coffee, whatever he gave her, and she was like, it's nice. And that's how the episode ends. So I'm like, this motherfucker wants to have a relationship with his sister? Oh, and I guess he made the point when the father was telling him, leave your sister alone, and he was like really stressing, she's my half sister. Like, that makes a fucking difference. You share a parent. So what are you talking about? But yeah, that's how this episode ended. Like I said, it wasn't a whole lot that happened, but some things were revealed in this episode. So I am going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys later.